Welcome to the COSB 360 Conversations podcast, the platform for county influencers. This is a new platform being launched by County HR's Organizational and Talent Development Division to engage with our leaders and keep our workforce informed. This is also one way that we can share the efforts of departmental staff and what it takes from a leadership perspective to keep the wheels turning in our organization. This podcast is being co-hosted by June Mighty and Dr. Leonie Mattison.
So welcome to the show this morning. We have with us our CEO, Mona Miyasato, and it is so exciting for June and I to be talking to Mona. She's our superhero right now. Like, really, guys, she is our superhero. She has led this organization through several crises, from the Isla Vista shooting. You were here for that. Yeah. You were here for the fire and the mudslides. You were here for the both fire. And now this invisible war that we're in, you're here. You haven't jumped ship. So we applaud you. We thank you for, your guiding this organization, leading us through COVID-19. And something I shared with June before we started the program, in February, you were one of our keynote speakers during the HR Summit, and you left an impression on all of us. And you shared an example with us where you demonstrated, it was a cassette you found in your garage, and you talk about the CD player and the differences between, and the Pandora box, right? And then you started playing music and you were dancing with us. And really what you were, the key message from that demonstration was how far we've come as a country, as a people. We've evolved. And so when I thought about that and just thinking through Renew 22 and what's helping us as an organization to be able to navigate through COVID-19, I thought the old mindset is so gone. The new normal, or as one of our director, Wendy Sims Modem says, is now an advanced normal. Right? So we're so excited to be talking to you this morning, to hear from you. We have some key questions that June and I will, tag tail, and we'll have a conversation with you. So I'm going to turn it over to June to guide us through this process. So welcome to the show, Mona.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mona. And so, you know what? You are a seasoned public servant. Public service is not new to you. You've been doing this for a while. And as Leonie mentioned, you've navigated the County of Santa Barbara through a variety of crises. Now, I know that you're not always one to be out front and to talk about yourself, because really it's about you, and it's also about the team that surrounds you. But you really are the captain of the ship, so to speak, right? And so as you're going through all these different things, Mona, and as we're navigating this, I think it's important for our employees, and I'll say this as I set this up, we've been doing some online sessions with employees, and in that we've been engaging them in discussions in terms of how they're feeling as they're navigating the crisis, and they're being very transparent about that, and it's really good. It's been very refreshing. So with that, what are some of the things that you do? How do you manage yourself as you're leading through these crises? John Maxwell talks about in one of his books, the distractions that hits a leader, whether you're mind wandering, negative thinking, anxiety, all these things. What do you do to sort of stay grounded as you move through this?
That's a really good question. And talking about all the disasters, it's sort of like being in the County of Santa Barbara, all of us, the CEO, department heads, managers, all our employees, we've kind of built this muscle memory, I would say, because we all have this layer of resiliency that I don't even think we are aware of, but we do. And that's, a benefit to us. It's tragic that we've had to go through so many disasters, but it's a benefit. So I think that helps a lot. It helps me. And when you talk about sort of the things that you mentioned, a lot of that comes out of fear. Anxiety, mind wandering, negativity, a lot of it is based in fear. And so, everyone's afraid of something. It's a human condition to be afraid of something, afraid of not having control, afraid of not living up to expectations of your boss, or your family, or your spouse, or your children, fear of not knowing what's next exactly or what you're supposed to do. So there are lots of kinds of different fears that are manifest in different ways. And I think that's the things that you spoke of. And for me, I wake up afraid in the morning. What's this day going to hold for me? And am I going to make the grade that I expect of myself? But part of internal resiliency, and I know you ladies share it as well, is having courage. And the courage is, you know what? I'm going to face this fear. I'm going to get through it. And for a couple of reasons. One, we all understand that these feelings are in our head. The actual pain that we go through because of growth, because of change, because of conflict, it's all fleeting. We'll get through it, and it's never going to be permanent. It's only permanent if we make it permanent in our heads. And so part of it is getting through that, understanding that, this is not going to last forever. I'm going to get through this. And every day it's choosing to be that courageous. And I don't mean courageous in a big way that we are taught, especially as women. What is courage? It's a strength. That's not what I'm talking about. It's the willingness to say, I'm going to do what I think is right in the moment. I'm going to listen to people. I'm going to interact with people. I'm going to exchange some part of myself to hear what they have to bring to the table. Being open, that's courage too. And so every day just saying, I'm going to choose to be that way. I'm going to choose to engage in the uncomfortableness. I'm going to choose to engage in my own fear, in my discomfort to get through this. Because at the end, you always do get through it. And again, it's building a muscle that you can get through it. And once you do it once, you say, oh yeah, I did that. I could do that. I have a funny story. I say, when I talk to younger women in different sessions, I said, there's these things about stance. And so there's this one researcher at Harvard said, to feel bigger, you should put your arms up, or these physical stances that actually affect your mind. So I said, when I first started, I was going to have a very tough discussion with an elected official. And so I went out their door and I kind of relaxed and I said, okay, I'm going to stand here and get that energy going and get the mind-body connection. And what I forgot was there was a glass door. And so their administrative assistant said, Mona, is that you? What are you doing out there? So evidently it doesn't always work for everyone, but it's this idea that you choose every day to come and be your full self and get through the uncomfortableness. It's a story we tell in our minds more than anything else. And, get through the uncomfortableness and go on to the next thing, because there's always going to be a next thing.
Sure.
So that's how I do it.
Wow, that, you've packed, and I love that because you packed a lot of that. You answered a lot of my questions in that. And I love that. I totally love it. And so with that, you talked about control, you talked about courage, choosing courage, being willing to choose that, the story that we tell ourselves. So let me ask you a little bit about the control, right? Yeah. Because I was listening to a speaker and he talked about the illusion of control. And a lot of times people are having a hard time because they thought they were in control of their lives. We think we're in control of everything, and we're finding out through this pandemic, yeah, you're not in as much control as you think you are. So talk to me a little bit about that. How do you manage the aspect of control? How do you see that?
Good question. And first of all, I have no delusion that I like control. I feel like I have to have control over certain things and documents and processes and how things go. Obviously, we're all like that. So I have no delusion about that. I know that that's something I also do. But the issue of control really is about, again, it's a fear that we aren't moving in the way we want to move. And so we hunker down. Mm-hmm. And right now in this emergency, we have two choices, really in any emergency. And that's either hunker down and try to have a tighter grasp or to reset. Mm-hmm. And what we're trying to do is reset. Mm-hmm. And that's actually what we've been trying to do for Renew 22 is prepare ourselves for this day and reset ourselves. So that's one thing. The other thing is that it's easier to give up control. It's easier to accept the reality that things are changing all the time when you have people that you can rely on around you. So I appreciate that you said, Mona, you're the county executive officer, but it's a whole team. It is a whole team. I'm one member of a team, and sometimes they listen to me, sometimes they don't. I have a great group of people surrounding me that we learn from each other, and they're not afraid to tell me that doesn't make sense, or here's something I'd suggest that you do, etc. So it's a whole team. So it's easier to give up control when you have a whole team of people, because you're sharing in the risk. And that's another important thing in an emergency. You need people around you for information flow, for communication, but really you need people around you because it's easier to share the risk when you have a group of people, a group of minds working together. And the last thing about control, I just want to say is that we all have a human experience that we're going through. And the most important thing is an understanding about not having control is that everyone is going through it at the same time. That's what's really amazing about this emergency, is that it's not just me and Leonie and June that's going through this in our own different perspectives. It's the whole world. There's a Mona, Leonie, and a June somewhere halfway around the world, probably doing the same things, thinking the same things that we are. And there's comfort in that. It's a reminder that we all are having a human experience and we're going through the same thing. And it's not just in an emergency, it's usually in life, but we forget that because we get in our own individual silos, organizational, national silos, etc. So the other thing by giving control is just having acknowledgement. You know, I can give some control up because really everyone is going through the same thing.
That is awesome. I'm going to just ask you one more question, and then I'm going to pitch it over to Leonie. So we're talking about, you said something about resets, right? And also Renew 22. And since I've been a part of this team and with the Renew 22 and this multi-year transformation that we're going through, I find that these emergencies, right, give us, yes, an opportunity to reset, but I also feel in some respects that it is actually advancing this initiative. It's advancing the vision. And so with that being said, at least that's from the seat from which I sit. So with that being said, what are some of the things that you envision on the other side of this? I know it's going to be challenging, you know, but what are some of the things that you envision on the other side of this pandemic for this organization?
Well, I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you feel that this is sort of an acceleration of Renew, because that's what I have been saying, that it really is. I think all the work that all of us have done, the whole county has done, have already gotten things in motion. This has just accelerated it and made them more urgent. So the most, you know, that I've been thinking about all the things that we were doing with Renew before we kind of had to stop for the pandemic, and the behaviors that we were going to introduce. So most of the organization doesn't know this, but there were certain behaviors that we were going to introduce. And behavior sounds sort of, you know, that we're prescribing these behaviors. It was really saying, here are some basic ways that we want to act as an organization. And those behaviors, those kinds of actions are needed now more than ever. And so I'm going to give you an example. The one thing, and there's lots of things we could talk about technology and digital and communication and workspaces, et cetera. But the one thing that I hope when we get through the pandemic on the other side is that we have learned and have experience in experimentation. It's that we've learned and have experience in experimentation. It's because part of Renew 22 is also, remember, one of the behaviors is greater risk taking. And so that's what we've seen, because we're in an urgent situation where dramatic action has to take place for things that we haven't done before, or things that were in the works, but were slowed down because of administrative or bureaucratic hurdles that had merit. But now we've said, you know, with this emergency, we need to get them done now. And we have the authority to do them now under an emergency.
Right.
So I'm hoping that some of that sticks with us and we get to the other side. And that to do that, to be able to do experimentation, to do trials, to do tests, to do pilots, what do you need to do that? You need collaboration, because you need people to come along to get it done. You need data, because you have to see at the end of the day, was my data validating what I thought would happen, right? You need strategy, because you say, okay, if my experiment doesn't work, what's the next step? And what's the next step after that? It's really just running different scenarios. And you need alignment, which is basically, what is my purpose in doing this? And so you're absolutely right, June. That's what I see. But the one thing I hope when we get on the other side is this sticks with us and we become a more agile organization and willing to try more experimentation with measured risks. It has to be measured risks. We're not being foolish. We're taking measured and calculated risks.
Mona, thank you for that. And I just want to tell you, like I said, from some of the feedback with the online sessions we've been doing and listening to some of the participants who are attending the training, from your frontline staff on up, there are people who are willing to engage and are feeling that sense of movement and momentum. So I just want you to know that that is definitely out there.
That makes me feel good.
Yeah. Leonie?
Great. So Mona, you went through, I mean, as June said before, you've answered probably like 4 or 5 of our questions.
I love it.
So high five. I'm giving you virtual high five over here. So I really want you to go back to the transformative behaviors because
great.
I felt like you just introduced it, but you just gave us like a little bit of taste in our mouths, and I really want to eat more. So why don't you go ahead? I'm greedy. I'm Jamaican. I'm greedy. I want a whole plate. You can't just give me a little spoon feed and think that's it. I love it. I want more. So would you mind probably just using this as an opportunity to really introduce to the organization these transformative behaviors, what they are, why, how did they come about, and what's your vision and expectation for how we should run with this information that you're sharing with us today?
Okay, thanks, Leonie. So I'm going to start out from maybe stepping back a little bit. And so Renew 22, why we started it. And when I was at the February HR leadership,
February.
It was like years ago. What I said was to simply boil it down, why did we do Renew 22? And it was simply that we said we wanted to be the county that got it right. What does that mean? And I said, I sincerely mean that we deserve, as employees of Santa Barbara County, as residents of Santa Barbara County, to work for an organization that is itself the highest and best version of itself. So the county government, what would it look like if the county government was the highest and best version of itself? And all our employees coming to work every day were the highest and best version of themselves. And so what do we need to do? I'm privileged to be in a leadership position here. What do I need to do, and what does the whole leadership team, the department heads need to do to encourage that? And so we came up with these ideas of Renew 22, and it started from because we had issues with our pension, costs hitting us, and had to do budget rebalancing, and we had coming out of the recession, we're trying to figure out how our finances would work, and we realized it's not a financial issue, it's really an organizational issue. So how do we actually get to be the organization that we want to be in the 21st century? And that was Renew 22. And we came up with different ways. How do we retain our employees? How do we rebalance our budgets? How to respond better to our customers and to each other? How do we redesign our process? And how do we really refocus and look at our purpose? Right, so that was Renew 22. Out of that came, in order to do that, our obligation as leaders who have this responsibility is to do 2 things. One is develop the systems to do that, right? So we're doing a lot of system changes. We're looking at a new, potentially a new enterprise system that works through the Banner project that I know that HR is involved in with the auditor. We have an integrated system, things like that. We're looking at different changes to our structures. We're doing capital improvements to ensure our physical systems. But what else do we need to do? Our largest advantage in any organization, and particularly here in the county, is our human capital.
Absolutely.
What does that mean? It means all of us, employees, all of us are our biggest asset. And I don't mean that in a flippant way. It really is. The way to change anything is really through individuals feeling that they have the ability to change and they have the tools to change.
Correct.
And so one of the things we thought about was, what are transformative actions we want people to take? That it becomes part of the norm. And for many departments, many work groups, many divisions, they'll say, well, we already do those things. And it's true, they do. Lots of them already do. But what would it be like if the county overall said, you know what, these are the behaviors we're going to follow. And if in doubt, let's check back. Are we actually following these behaviors? Because these behaviors we believe will get to the kind of outcome we want. So what were the behaviors? I remember it by the acronym CARDS, right? CARDS. So I think I play cards. I mean, I'm playing these behaviors. One is C is collaboration. Everyone says, well, I collaborate. You know, I talk to people. Collaboration is different than buy-in. Collaboration is you really believing there is an interest that someone has that can add value to what we're doing, right? It's the whole idea of everyone brings a little bit to the soup, right?
So Mona, let me interject. Can you give us an example of what that looks like?
Okay, I'll give you
right. I've heard people really, it becomes cliche, right? Yeah. I collaborate, but what does that really look like from an organizational, development standpoint? So probably share an example with us.
Okay, so I'll tell you right now in the emergency, we put a structure together. When we started the emergency, the way it was managed was through different pockets, which is like how you would manage a fire. The fire teams were out there with their other fire agencies. You have the incident commander, the emergency operations center would be supporting that. We'd have a public information team, et cetera. Because this is a different kind of emergency, it's a public health emergency. And public health has lots of responsibilities, and they have a department operations center. So they were operating as a department operations center because a lot of these things are public health issues. And then it was going to the EOC. So it was more of a sequential type of structure. And so what we did was we said, you know what, we're going to use a typical public safety structure of unified command. So think about unified command. You have people who are unified making decisions. And so we had the incident management team from fire, which is, we had fire personnel, we have people from the sheriff's department, we have my office, we have public health. And together those leaders are basically making the day-to-day decisions. So that's true collaboration. When they're making decisions, consensus decisions on how to move forward, and then bringing those recommendations to me. So that's what it means. And it means also that everyone has a mutual interest. So a lot of people think collaboration means I have to give something up because they're going to gain something. No, true collaboration is that there's a mutual interest and everyone mutually agrees that that's the interest they want to follow based on the goal and the mission. So that's collaboration. The other one is, so CARDS, A, alignment. What do I mean by alignment? Alignment really is purpose. Right. That your purpose as an individual, as a work group, as a team, as a division, as a department, fulfills the larger purpose of what we're trying to do. So what are we trying to do? You know, I took my little box here because we had all these, right? To fulfill our mission. And you see it, ready to go.
Yeah.
Right? It's to deliver exceptional services so that the county, all residents can enjoy a safe and healthy and prosperous life, right? It's so large and vague, but every department has a piece of that. And so is the individual work that I'm doing as an employee in alignment with this larger purpose? And so it's really focusing on that. And the emergency has shown us that. And that's why the debris flow in this, it's that our real singular purpose is protecting the public health right now.
Absolutely.
That's true.
Right? Protecting the public health. And we're protecting people's safety. And with this reopening of businesses, we're trying to ensure prosperity, right? So everything is aligned to that. So that's the A of CARDS alignment. R is risk-taking, and we talked a little bit about that. If you think about all the things that we've done in the last even 2 weeks, it's just amazing. We've, through public works and planning, we're opening businesses, allowing them to operate on the sidewalks and the roads, right? And soon it'll be into private property or parking lots. They're doing that. We did that quickly. Or allowing wineries to serve food where we didn't before. We are, yes, okay, Leonie, calm down. All those things we're trying as experiments, and we're getting, you know, as we're coming along, we're having problems along the way. People are pointing out things. Okay, that's a problem. Let's address it, and let's see if we can still move forward. There's lots of different experimentation, so it's risk-taking. But again, not doing it blindly, understanding what are the risks, what are the benefits, how would we mitigate them, those types of things. So CARD, C-A-R-D, is data-driven decisions. And so if we do these things, we have to obviously look at, okay, did it work? What are the metrics? Let's say up front, we're going to say how many businesses applied for this. Did it help them? You know, surveying like you're doing, getting as much data and making decisions based on that data. It sounds simple, it sounds obvious, but sometimes we don't have the best systems to collect that data. So it's starting out, okay, what data do we need? And then S, CARDS, S, yeah, cards. It's a strategy. And it, you know, in a lot of minds, strategy, people would think of these very detailed strategic plans. We're in a situation now that really, there's no time for that, right? And really, we have to be adaptive. The words now are adaptive response. So as things come, you adjust. As things come, you adjust. As things come, you adjust. That's agility and resiliency. So in this adaptive response, strategy really is about, okay, if I'm going to look ahead, I know what my next move is. If that doesn't work out, what's my next 2 moves after that? Or if it does work out, what are my next 2 moves after that? It's really, like I said, scenario planning. Give me 5 different scenarios of what can happen, and then give me the next step. It's the what if scenarios. And it's getting in that mind, that mindset. And when things are calm and stable, we sometimes forget, or we sometimes get complacent. We don't really think about the what ifs. But we are now in a world of what ifs. And when you said it's the new normal, it's the advanced normal, you know, what we're calling it is the next normal. And that's actually what we called it on budget, but it's the next normal because it's trying to inculcate into us, this is one of a series of different adaptations and challenges we're going to have. We are going to have. And we shouldn't get complacent. That's the new fixed normal. It's the next normal. And our best practices are the next practices, right? It's what's next that we need to do to adjust, to be the best organization that we can be.
I really thank you for sharing the transformative behaviors. As you know, June and I are in the business of making sure we now take this, we're going to digest it, marinate it, and then we're going to make sure
we it out
through everything.
Leonie, I get a whole theme: marinate, delicious, eat the whole thing.
Food's on my mind. But something that you said, Mona, I wrote this down in my notes this morning, that I don't know if you've ever watched the movie, the Apollo 13. Apollo 13, where things were looking very bleak, and one of the NASA staffers says, this could be the worst disaster NASA has ever seen. And then Ed Harris, who was playing Gene Kranz, the flight director, says, with all due respect, sir, I believe this will be one of our finest hour. And that is what I heard from you this morning, just sharing the cards, these transformative behaviors with us. That's vision. That's part of vision, anyway, from my perspective. If you're a leader, you know, whether it's, and to all of our community members who might be listening into this show today, if you're a nonprofit leader, to our department heads, to our employees, vision matters more today than ever before. And with the Renew 22, we have that as part of our, in our toolkits really, that we can look to. And now we have these behaviors. And as Maria Elena likes to say, now we get to weave it through everything. It's like a braid. You know how she likes to say, I imagine I have to braid. You have to braid everything.
She has hair analogies. You have food analogies.
You know, so I love that. I really, really appreciate you sharing the behaviors, because it is so important that we know how to show up, what's expected of us as leaders and employees, so that we can fulfill the mission that you just shared with us, the mission of the organization. And I also love that now we're saying we're one county. I love the width that you recently added to that statement.
Oops.
Oh, she's frozen on me. So until I get her back, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump in and just say something.
We know, back.
You're back. I was going to take over while you were frozen.
You froze up on us, Leonie. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. But yeah, so I actually going to stop at the card, just really thanking you for sharing the transformative behaviors, because now we know how to show up. You see, we had the vision, we had the mission, we know who we are, we know what the values are expected of us, but now we know exactly why and how to show up. You know what I mean? Now I know, okay, this is how I need to behave. And it's not cliche. And the way you would just articulated that to us, it
Articulated
makes
well.
sense. I'm marinating. I'm just sitting over here just
Marinating, there she goes again.
Listen, are we marinating steak, or we're marinating chicken? Is it lamb? What's on the menu? Because
By the time we finish, y'all are going to put me on the grill, but I'm just marinating right now. So you go ahead.
Oh my gosh, Mona, thank you so much. As I listen to you, and I want to say this from my perspective, as we go through, all of us, your team, the department heads, all of us, we sort of, as you say, we get bogged down doing different things, right? And along the way, sometimes we just get a little like frayed, and I think as I listened to you this morning, and this is why I think this is so important, and why probably we will tap you again sometime in the future. When I hear you talk and speak, and the way that you share it, and the way that you craft this story, this narrative for us, it is so engaging, and it pulls me in to what you are wanting to do. It makes me see it and just like, yes, okay, let's get this going, and and I was talking yesterday to Leonie, I'm sort of a vision and mission driven person, so when I'm locked in and I can see all of that, I'm like, okay, let's go, and the idea of being able, I said to Leonie yesterday, is these are the type of things that we're able to pivot on. So it's not so much about whether we like each other, whether we get along. It's clear what we are about. It's clear what we want to accomplish. And that's where we align ourselves and we make the best decisions possible to accomplish this overall goal and this overall vision for the organization. So I say that to just say thank you for taking the time to just communicate this, and as I sit and absorb and I am inspired and engaged, in my brain cells are popping off with all kinds of ideas, on how to
sizzling
help.
then in Leonie's
Yes, sort of. Yes, I'm sizzling. She's marinating. I'm sizzling. With what we can do to help you, Maria, Lena, and the organization overall to be its best self. I want to be my best self here at the county, and yes, and be the best version of myself, and to be part of that is awesome. And I think others are going to feel the same way as well once they tune into this. So thank you so much for your transparency, for your candor, and your openness you shared with us today. This is an absolutely wonderful way for me to end my Friday.
Don't end it just yet. One last question for Mona before she hops offline. So the engagement piece for us, I just want to know quickly, what are some innovative ways your employees have ramped up to meet the needs of the community? So probably share one or two things that you feel is of most importance that people will want to hear. So probably share that with us.
One thing that I'm really proud of, and it's really our clerk of the board staff, Jacqueline, who's our new chief deputy, has done an amazing job on learning all the tools of Zoom. But it's amazing. So I'm really proud of her that I'm able to do that. We have actually a live board of supervisors meeting going on. She has Zoom going on for people to participate in. She's on the phone. We're taking public testimony over the phone now, or people can call in. So there's a lot more access where someone doesn't have to spend 8 hours at the board meeting waiting for their item to be called. They can do it from their home through telephone or through Zoom. Mm-hmm. That and like we talked about, it's being live streamed on not only our typical channel 20, it's being live streamed on Granicus and on YouTube. Right. So it's this idea of, there are other ways for people to participate in our public process, because we, at the bottom line of all of this, we are representative democracy, and we have to show that government works. And that is, I think she's done an excellent job, but that's a great example of, hey, this has forced us to look at other ways for people to participate in a way that's easier for them as residents or community members to participate. And I think that's huge. And we're going to see how much of that's going to continue after the pandemic, what we can continue and what makes sense. So that's important.
Awesome. And what are your parting words to our employees and community members? What would you like to say to everyone?
So, it's always wonderful talking to the two of you. You bring so much energy to me as well. I'm hungry now. Thanks a lot, Leonie. But yeah, I know. But it's also, that I just don't want anyone to think we're discounting the pain and the trauma that's occurring because of the crisis. We have a lot of community members who are suffering. I have a lot of friends who are in different businesses that haven't been able to open up. And it's very difficult. It's very painful for them. And so as employees, we're continuing to work and we're continuing to serve the public in different ways, but also for our employees to have compassion for our community members. Not everyone is as stable as government is that we are right now. And we should just remember that we're really part of one large community. One county, one future doesn't just mean lots of departments. It means we're part of this entire county, and we need to do our part as well. And that means doing your best job as a public servant, being a disaster service worker when you're called in, having compassion and listening to people when they are calling you for a service, for a complaint, to help accommodate their needs. We are a service agency, first and foremost, to make sure that people are getting served in the way they need to. And so just to remember that, that is our first priority, make sure we're serving the residents of this county. And we continue to do that. And I'm very grateful for our employees. I've seen some really incredible heroic acts through this pandemic, people going beyond their normal roles. And that's really appreciated. And I know we'll continue to do that until the pandemic is over and beyond.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you so very much.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for joining with us this morning. I really appreciate it. We really appreciate having you. So,
well, no, anytime.
Have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend. And we look forward to, connecting with you again. Thanks, Mona.
Okay. All right.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the interview portion of our program. Up next, we will take a deeper dive into the topics covered and also provide some news and updates.
Okay. All right. We got through that. That was really good. I love it. I love that you said let her talk, because it was so, she answered like we only had to ask one. She answered it. So it was really good. And as I listened to Mona speak today, one of the things that jumped out at me is we really are resourced. We have one another, we have systems in place, we have the Renew 22, we have, our behaviors, our values. We have existing resources that we can leverage. And as she clearly stated at the end, we're not undermining what people are going through. You've had some losses. I've had some losses. We've had colleagues in HR, our colleagues who have gone through some deep losses, family members. We have friends and family members who are having to deal with businesses being closed. You have single moms who have now the added pressure and stress of homeschooling, in addition to the physical distancing that we're having to practice. So a combination of emotional, whirlwind of emotions that we're all
whirlwind is a good term. Yeah.
Right.
Whirlwind.
And so, I just want to say to our employees listening and to our community members, we're really stronger together than we probably sometimes are cognizant of, because we're getting through this pandemic because we have each other, because we're working together, not because any one person, has all the answers, because we don't. As Mona is saying that, we have to work together to adapt, to be flexible, to truly put wings and legs and feet, hands on collaboration. Yeah. So, what are your thoughts, June?
Well, I wrote down, I tried to capture some of the words that she was saying. And of course, I know I could go back, but I wanted to capture it in a moment. I love the idea of adaptive response. Yes. Agility, resiliency. And even in her communication before, I've heard her in other communication, the idea of resiliency is really important to her, that it's not just a concept anymore. This is it's real life. Resiliency in action. It's actually transpiring right now. So I really love that. And I like the idea of the next normal. You know, we could talk about the new normal. I remember having a conversation with Montez and a young person. He got some feedback from a young person. She was 17, and she said, this is just an innovative way of living. You know, that's how she saw it.
Mm-hmm.
But I also, and so we're hearing these different ways. People are defining different ways, but also for us as a county, the next normal, because we are sort of creating what's next. We're creating the future. We're making it happening now. And then we'll probably go from there, and then something else will happen, and then we're going to create again. So again, it's back to that agility, the ability to respond, the ability to pivot. All those things is real, you know. And so I find it inspiring.
It was a very inspiring and informative conversation with our CEO. And in the very beginning, I jotted a couple of things down too. I'm an acronym girl too, and I also like to pull out themes. And what I heard Mona say, okay, to navigate, to get through what we're going through, we need courage.
Yeah.
Choice, we have to make a decision. Control, define that, really. Like, take a look at what control really means. And you talked about that a couple of weeks with our team. And collaboration. Without collaboration, again, you're stuck in this siloed world trying to, I always say, void of collaboration, you're like a black cat in a black room, you're stuck. You're going to probably, tumble over stuff because you're unable to see. And then she talked about, I call it lead.
But hold on a second there, but it's the way. So now let's go back to collaboration, because I like the way she defined it.
Yes.
She defined it for us, you know,
Yeah.
as an organization. And that speaks volumes. You know, the idea that this is not a compromise. You're not trying to give up anything.
No.
It's everybody at the table working to make the best decision possible to address the situation, move us forward. I love the way that she defined that.
She was inclusive as well, because when I listened to Mona, as you said, define collaboration, I felt like a champion being invited to the table with other champions. Essentially, that's what she's saying. She acknowledged that, look, we have the best of the best here in our workforce. In fact, we have 5 generations here at the County of Santa Barbara. We are multi-generational workforce. And so we all bring different perspective to the table. So it's no longer a one department because maybe it's going to impact that one department. Like, this is a public health issue. Right. But it takes more than just a public health officer to be able to help us to navigate through. We need, again, all the talents coming to the table as champions, courageous employees or individuals, getting ready, you're almost like the mode of or the mindset of, we need to make a decision because it's invisible, we can't see it. So collectively, we need to work together, right? Because there are decisions that needs to be made. And then something that she said as well is it's about learning. It's about experiencing, I guess, if you want to say, having new experiences in the moment. And it's about
experimentation.
Exactly. Lee, learning, experiencing, and experimenting, right? And we're doing a lot of that, even in HR. It's really, that's probably the theme of HR and even the OTD division, is how do we cultivate a learning culture? And actually, Mona helped to redefine that for us today. A learning culture is a culture that's a lifelong learning, constantly learning. Mm-hmm. We're experiencing new things, whether you're on the job or you're out in the community, and you're open to experimenting, to piloting things, to taking risks.
Again, the experimentation, right? Loved it.
So we're going to weave that through in the work that we do here in HR, right?
Sizzle.
So that's another plug-in for our employees to know this is coming. We want you to be adaptive. That's right. That's the word, adaptive.
Yeah, adaptive response, agility, resilience.
And June, what I love. Words are really powerful. Was it like 2-3 years ago we had the next Congress? Right. And now Mona is saying, look, you ought to be asking yourself, what's
Yes. But you know what? Even with that, you ask yourself what's next. It gives us, all county employees, the opportunity to define our reality, to define our future. I can sit in my seat. I don't have to be the CEO. I don't have to be the department head. I can sit from my seat. And again, remember I said again, you can lead from any seat.
Absolutely.
And say, how do I contribute my best? How do I contribute? What can I give to this organization to reflect my best self, my best contribution? What's next? How do I do that? Every one of us has the opportunity to do that. And that's, to me, is exciting.
And I think that's a great segue into sharing with our employees what's next. What's next for, HROTD? What are some of the things we have planned for our leaders? Because part of this whole process too, when asking the question, what's next? Another thing I wrote down, let me grab my notes here. I actually want our employees to be asking ourselves, am I a leader or a manager? And don't get me wrong, both are important, but there's a priority. And one of the things we need right now is leadership, right? Managers are more concerned with the now. What's now in the moment? Like, what do we need to do now, right? Leaders are more concerned with the future. And we have a lot of people, you know this to be true, a lot of our employees, a lot of our community members, family members too, are working on the now. But we have to have some leaders who give a vision for a bigger, better, brighter, more adaptive, if you want to call it, more, I love what Wendy said yesterday, more advanced, if you want to call it that as well, future. Right? So both, don't get me wrong, both are important. Manager and leader, it's important.
Both hats are necessary.
Both hats are, absolutely, but leaders have to have a vision for the future. So perhaps this is a good place for us to plug in. What are we doing? What are our thoughts towards leadership development here at the County of Santa Barbara? Because that's part of the Renew 22 effort, is that we retain, right? I always look up at my board and it says retain high-performing employees, right? And build the next generation of leaders. So June, take it away from here. Share with our employees what's next.
So, you know what, collectively, as you know, the HR as a whole, and also with our division, because this is kind of the main focus of what we do, the crux. This is how we contribute to the puzzle, right? This is our piece of the puzzle, right? When you talk about leadership, when you put it in a framework, what comes to my mind first and foremost is we talked about the first aspect is leading self. Yes. So it still goes back to, which fits in again with your best self.
Yes.
Right? The best organization, the organization becoming the best version of itself. So our residents can lead what? Their best life, right? So we start off with that. And one of the things I say that because it brings me back to just the promotion of our becoming a supervisor that we're going to be bringing online virtually, piloting that this coming month in June, which is right around the corner. And so that's where one of the segments of that program is looking at identity, self, because true leadership starts with self, and it's an inside out job, right?
Right.
So that's one of the things, that's one of the premise of it, and then leading change, self-change, leading change for yourself. And then we go into some of the things in terms of this program is designed for those who are aspiring supervisors, right? And we want to give them a glimpse into what it means to be a supervisor. Yes. And if they can get that glimpse, and then they can really make a good decision. It's like, do I want to take that road or do I want to take another road?
And that's the data Mona talked about this morning, is having that data to make the well-informed decision.
Right? And so we can do that. And then, of course, even though it's a little ways down the road, we are going to be sort of trying to craft career paths for people. We have the success development that we're working on in terms of putting together some tools and different things to help our leaders and employees to really navigate their journey, their growth journey, So those are some of the things, but the becoming a supervisor is the most immediate. In the fall, we're going to be looking at the supervisor boot camp. We're looking at management development. How can we end the year and end it strong, even in spite of all this? Because again, I think what's important, and Mona brought up a good point at the end, it still is a crisis. It still is a pandemic, and it's affecting people in many different ways. But I think what I've noticed, one moment, please. What I've noticed is that still we need to develop our leaders to continue to progress, to learn how to be resilient, so that when the next situation arises, and it will, we don't know it will, that they are prepared. As Wendy said yesterday, you prepare for it. You don't wait till it happens. You prepare. And then we're able to develop that muscle. I love it. It's that memory, muscle memory to be able to meet the next demand, the next challenge, whatever it may be. So those are just some of the things that I'm really excited about that we're doing as an organization, HR and OTD in support of the overall county vision and mission.
Great. And June, as you were speaking, I believe that this is a great opportunity for us. So perhaps for our next show, I think we should just spend some time introducing or unveiling the leadership development series and just walking our county, showing our employees, how HR is thinking about all county employees at all levels, as you said, to rise to the level of leadership that we need beyond COVID-19. Mm-hmm. So, I'm putting that plug out, in there for employees to be on the lookout for a presentation from OTD or lead June, mm-hmm. Mighty, to share with us the unveiling of the leadership development series, what it is, what are the components of the leadership development series, what are some of the learning tracks that we're thinking about, and also we're inviting our employees to really start thinking about where you fit, what program is right for you, and start communicating, like collaborating with us, start connecting with us and letting us know what are some of the skills that you're wanting to develop, because it is important that you know where your strengths are, right? And where those opportunities for you to enhance your skill set so that you can continue to grow with the organization.
Correct. Awesome.
Great.
I'm so glad. Yeah. This has just been great. And I just want to say how excited I am about what we are doing and about this COSB 360 conversation, a platform for county influencers. And again, it's not limited to the CEOs and the department heads, but to employees across the organization who has something that they want to share and believe that it'll be impactful for the county at large and even our community. So, as I said before, we welcome people to just contact us, ask questions, and if you have an idea, you want to participate, let us know.
Awesome. Great, June. And I think that's a great note to end on. And so from June Mighty and yours truly, Dr. Leonie H. Mattison, this is just getting better. I'm fully seasoned now. I'm ready to get thrown on the grill.
I am so hungry right now. It's just
That was not my intentions, by the way, June. Not to
yeah, I'm sure Mona may be starving, and I'm right about starving right about now with all this discussion of food.
Well,
Now,
thanks everyone for tuning into the show today, and we look forward to connecting and sharing with the county family as well as our community members.
yeah, and stay tuned. We will be coming up with some new ideas next month. We will have other guests, right? And also we will be launching, just stay tuned for more information in terms of our ebook club that will coincide with our series and our discussion. So stay tuned, more to come. Talk to you later. Have a great weekend.
You too, June.
Thanks for listening to the COSB 360 Conversations podcast, the platform for county influencers. We welcome your thoughts and feedback. So if you have any questions for today's guest, or if you have any recommendation for future topics and guests, please contact our co-host. We consider all county employees to be influencers. So if you're working on an initiative or a program that has a positive impact in our county, please contact us with your idea.